Now we're going to go through the expectations and the process for Module 5. Next, you need to go into your course, and for illustrative purposes, we have chosen to do the English Language Arts as our example. However, for math and science, the same process applies. Before proceeding to Module 5, make sure that Modules 1 through 4 are completed. For Module 1, this includes viewing the Section 1 Course Introduction and Section 2 Assessment Literacy videos, as well as responding to the course introductions and/or the Module 1 form. For Module 2, this includes viewing the Section 1 Variable Sheet video, Section 2 The Appearance of the Standards, Section 3 Text Complexity, Section 4 Strength, Section 5 Rigor, and after you have reviewed all of the content-specific resources and learning activities in Module 2, proceed to the Module 2 forum. For math and science, you will notice that the sections are different as they contain different subject-specific material. Next, proceed to Module 3. This includes viewing the video in Section 1, which is the Alignment, Modeling, and Practice. Also complete the practice alignment with 5 items. Make sure to submit your response to the assignment area in the Practice with Feedback assignment. Lastly, to complete this module, participate in the discussion forum. For Module 4, all of your individual items should have your alignment decisions with them. These classifications should be submitted to the assignment area in Module 4, titled the Individual Alignments Assignment section. After these 4 modules are completed, you may proceed to Module 5. In Module 5, there are 3 parts, with a culminating activity being the item classification defense as modeled by the Claims Evidence Reasoning Framework. Here you're going to choose 3 items from your Module 4 individual work to present to the group, and select 2 items to engage in counter-arguments. So with the Claims Evidence Reasoning Framework, it's important to have an adequate explanation or claim. You should make sure that the conceptual quality of the explanation or the warrants supporting the claim are strong. Also include quality evidence that supports your claim. And another ingredient of a successful claims evidence reasoning would be to have sufficient reasoning, including rebuttals where you refute another standing to strengthen the claim that you present. What we really are asking you to do is to engage in the argumentation process. Here you can see Tolman's argument model. Argumentation has arguments with a series of claims or counterclaims with either data, warrants, or backings. A moderate argument would include an occasional weak rebuttal. More sophisticated argumentation has arguments with a claim that have clearly identifiable rebuttals, and these arguments have several claims and counterclaims presented with the original argument. And lastly, for the highest progression of argumentation, one would present an extended argument with more than one rebuttal, making it difficult to disagree with the stance. Before participating in the Module 5 discussion forum, make sure you watch the Section 1 consensus video sample. Here, we are going through the Section 2 participating in the Module 5 forum video. 2 resources that will be helpful in the discussion forum are the Argument Planning Sheet on the left and the Claims Evidence Reasoning Structure on the right. Section 1's purpose is to understand the full protocol for consensus. Unfortunately, due to the self-paced nature of this course, it is not feasible to go through this ideal gaining agreement situation or decision-making process. We have shown the protocol and an abbreviated version of gaining consensus from the 2014 summer workshop. In case you hope to replicate this POW instruction with your peers in a face-to-face format, or if you want to have a deeper conceptual understanding of the process and why gaining agreement on these items is of value. Section 2 is this video tutorial. This is how you actually participate in the forum using claims evidence reasoning. We encourage you to use these 2 supplemental handouts of the section in order to help you frame your claim and evidence for the discussion forum. Based on the forum layout, we are essentially transposing the information from the argument planning sheet and repurposing it into the discussion forum so others can comment and participate in this process. So for our how to engage in the claims evidence reasoning in the discussion forum, we're going to be looking at the alien home passage. Specifically, we're looking at the alien home's interpret word as used in article item. From the item we just saw, we could take and supply our claims on the left-hand side. So here, these questions or problem statements are our claims. So we are stating that this item is most appropriate for grade 8. The strand is most appropriate to nonfiction informational text. The College and Career Ready Anchor Standard is craft and structure. The standard, we believe, is the informational text, grade 4, standard 4. The language features that it's a tier 2 or academic vocabulary word, that the depth of knowledge would be a level 1, and lastly, that the revised Bloom's taxonomy is remember. Then if we look here in the middle column, here is our evidence that supports our claim. And in our last column, we have our reasoning. And our reasoning is really linking together our evidence and our claim. And lastly, we have fitness judgments, so how well that item fits to our claim. So using this sheet, we need to go into the discussion forum. So you would want to select your group. So, since that was a grade 8 item, I reviewed the middle school packet. So I would select the middle school packet, and I would choose these items to respond to. The next step, you want to choose one of the items from your individual classification assignment. So for math and science, there was roughly 30 items. You would only want to choose one of those to start with. Once you had chose your item, you want to make your classification decision or your claim, then supply the evidence for your decision, and then articulate your reasoning behind that classification decision. You would repeat this process for 2 additional items. Illustrative purposes, we are only going through one item. However, for you to complete this first aspect of the discussion forum, you need to make sure that you do this for 3 items. So give your claims evidence reasoning for 3 items. If we go back and we remember that argument planning sheet, we had stated that the item was appropriately aligned to a standard. That being said, we don't really need to go over the information for the grade or the College and Career Ready Anchor Standard or the strand, because when we put that standard, we are essentially discussing all of those aspects. So, to abbreviate or to ensure that you aren't duplicating any of your work and to make this process a little bit quicker, if you have included the standard, it is not necessary for you to go through the hierarchical classification, and you can just simply skip to the first aspects and ignore the remaining questions, as all of those categories are represented when you are stating that it is aligned to a standard. So let's say that it wasn't aligned to a standard, then you would respond to questions 5 through 7. So if it is appropriate to a grade, you would put that. If it is appropriate to a strand only, you would put that. And if it's appropriate to a College and Career Ready Anchor Standard, you would put that. Again, because this is an ELA example, we don't have the same nomenclature that is found in the Math Common Core Standards or in the Science K-12 framework. But again, the overall process and way you can just jump to one of these is very similar between the subject areas. So using that argument planning sheet, here would be an example of how you could make a claim, evidence, and reasonings for these 4 aspects. So there are actually 4 claims here. So let's focus on our claim for the standard. For the claim, we said that the most logical conclusion we can draw from this evidence is that it is the informational grade 8 standard 4 alignment because the student must understand the meaning of the word tolerate in its text context. The evidence for this, the student must understand the meaning of the word tolerate. For instance, the question asks, what does tolerate mean? And to answer this, the students had to know what tolerate meant in the context of the passage in order to choose the correct answer, which was allow the cane toads to continue causing a problem. For our reasoning, based on this evidence, we must conclude that our I.8.4 is in best alignment because the Montana Common Core standards for this state that the students must determine the meaning of the words and phrases as they are used in a text. For language features, our claim is that the fact that this item is a Tier 2 word is because tolerate is an academic word for this grade level. Our evidence, using Karen Hess's linking research with the practice description, states that students must infer what tolerate means with the passage context, as the word may be unfamiliar or nuanced in meaning with the other answer choices. Our reasoning, it's a Tier 2 word because it's used in high frequency for mature language users, and it is not subject specific as it can be used throughout a variety of domains and texts. For the depths of knowledge, this item is a depth of knowledge 1 because it requires students to have a simple understanding of the single word or phrase. Our evidence, students must read words connected to the text where they have a shallow understanding of the text presented and can infer the simple single word meaning. Our reasoning is that this is a lower cognitive demand of the item and the connected nature of the text. They have to recall simple word meaning that supports their placement. Additionally, the NAEP cognitive target of this prompt was integrate, interpret, so where the students had to actually determine the importance of the word tolerate as it related to the text. And lastly, for the revised Bloom's taxonomy, our claim is that it is remember, because a student must retrieve the knowledge to identify the word meaning of tolerate. Our evidence is they must retrieve knowledge from the text and recall the word meaning of tolerate so that they can select C as their answer choice or select that it allows the cane toads to continue causing a problem. Our reasoning is that if we look at the NAEP specifications, 71% of 8th graders were able to answer this question correctly, indicating that this is a low difficulty or low cognitive demand, and it is a simple ability for students to recognize or locate word meaning. Notice for the claims, an example of writing them, you could state, the most logical conclusion we can draw from this evidence is, and insert what your claim is, because, and insert your evidence. So there are several aspects to a claim. So in the argument planning sheet, as you notice, for the evidence and reasoning sections, the NAEP item specification document was referenced. If you go to your supplementary resources at the bottom of the page in the MDPLN, you can see that there are the NAEP item specification documents. This includes the NAEP framework as well as the cognitive demand sections for NAEP. So for math, this would be complexity. For science, this would be the practices. And for ELA, this is the cognitive target. So here's an example on the right-hand side of some of the language used to define those cognitive targets for ELA. So as we mentioned, we are only going through one item. So in order to complete Module 5's discussion forum, you would need to repeat that process that we just did, the claims, evidence, reasoning for the 4 aspects, for 2 more items. The next piece of the discussion forum is that you make 2 counter-arguments. So select 2 items that are already in the discussion forum to engage in a counter-argument. Here's an example again of Toulmin's argument pattern. And you can see the counter-argument placement. So choose a discussion post that has a claim that you disagree with. You're going to state your rebuttal claim and the evidence for your reasoning. It is important for you to remember that you need to move past just because statements in order to challenge the supposition of your peers. The purpose of the counter-argument or alternative explanation is for you to challenge the evidence, backing, or warrants of your peers where you disagree. This may be because the quality of the evidence they have is lacking or incorrect. This could also be because the connections between the claim and the evidence are stretched, giving it a weak or incomplete warrant for the claim. Lastly, it could be because the sufficiency of the reasoning is limited or poorly explained. Regardless of the reasons that you are in disagreement, choose two posts to propose alternative explanations for, thus challenging the claim or reasoning behind your peer's claim. Here's an example of the 5 aspects that you would need to cover in order to have a successful counter-argument. First, you want to choose the item, so the claim challenge. This is where you're selecting a post that you have disagreement with. So the purposes of this tutorial, we're going to say that for the standard of Alien Home, that it is aligned for that item to the informational grade 8 standard for text. We're going to say we disagree with that decision. And then the next aspect is your rebuttal reasoning. So why is there disagreement? Why do you not think that it is aligned to the informational grade 8 standard for text? So, for example, I do not think your evidence was complete. For example, students must understand the word tolerate through information gained by the text using deductive reasoning with multiple choice options. Now you need to make a counterclaim. So, for example, I think that this item type and has lower cognitive demand, that it is more appropriate to align this item to the language standards grade 8 standard 4A. For the counterclaim evidence, as a language grade 8 standard 4A aligned item, this is a tier 2 vocabulary question, as it clearly requires students to determine the meaning of an unknown word using context clues. This is a vocabulary item because the word tolerate is bolded. This gives students a clue to the word and the information with emphasis, thus allowing them to understand the word question and lowering the cognitive demand. And lastly, the 5th aspect, the reasoning for your claim, so the warrants for your rebuttal claim. It is more appropriate to align to the language standard because with the multiple choice formats, students can easily use their understanding of the word tolerate and subsequently choose the correct answer without referring back to the text. Thank you for viewing this Section 2 video in Module 5. We look forward to looking at your claims evidence reasoning in the discussion forum.